This is the day I've got a full A to Z review of the most controversial bike on earth, BMW R1250g Is, because it's the most contrasting emotions out of all motorcycles, maybe even ever built. Firstly, it's got a boxer engine, which you can find basically only in BMW motorcycles. Secondly, it looks kind of weird. Thirdly, it's BMW's best-selling bike in many countries like Germany, its motherland, and it's not cheap by any means. It's actually one of the most expensive motorcycles you can get today. But is it worth it? That's what I will help you answer right now. Despite the controversy, which may or may not be justified, BMW keeps improving the GS, which is the biggest GS in the family. There's also a smaller F850 GS with a two-cylinder inline engine and much less power, and a F750 GS that's even smaller and lighter, and also a G310 310 GS, which we may wonder if really is in fact a GS, or is it just to benefit from its name? It was introduced in 2016, but there's also a more extreme version of the biggest one, of the 1250 GS, and it's the adventure version of the R1250 GS called R1250 GS Adventure simply. If you want to know the specific differences between the regular 1250 GS and Adventure, check my video about it, the link is in the description below. It is a pretty detailed video. So R1250 GS is said to be the do-it-all motorcycle, and I can confirm that it is. I've ridden every GS starting from 2010 and R1200 GS all the way to the 2021 R1250 with the shift cam technology, and I can confirm that whatever you want to do with a motorcycle, this R1250 GS will do it well, and some things it will indeed do better than any other motorcycle in the world. I will tell you why in a second. Just two more things here. First is that it's in an adventure motorcycles category, which means that it's either meant to or it just can go off the road and comfortably ride over some worse surfaces and be with proper tires. And it can really go pretty far. Second thing is that it competes not only with motorcycles from other manufacturers, but there is a kind of an internal competition with BMW S1000 XR, which provides a very similar sitting position, is a very powerful motorcycle, and will let you handle long trips with luggage very comfortably too. It is significantly quicker, and on the other hand cannot really go off the road because standing on the foot pegs will not be comfortable at all, and with the four-cylinder inline engine it doesn't have that very low-end punch that the GS has. It will be quicker on a racetrack or racing supercars. Now, these two bikes may often be compared with each other, and it definitely makes sense. Now, outside of BMW brand, there is also Ducati Multistrada, currently a V4 one with a four-cylinder V engine with more power, but some features that make it less enjoyable to ride for some of you than a GS. That's another video actually coming. There's also a KTM 1290 Super Adventure, and that's a serious competition with a V2 engine this time. Others are Harley-Davidson Pan America, the world's ugliest creature perhaps, there's Yamaha Super Tenere 1200, perhaps coming soon, Triumph Tiger Explorer 1200, and a much less powerful Honda Africa Twin and the Suzuki V-Strom 1050. But in the end, it's about BMW, Ducati and KTM if we are talking about the ones that are considered on top of the class. So what's BMW R1250g Is like, and why do so many of us ride or want to ride one in the end? The infamous boxer engine now has 136 horsepower and stunning frigging 143 Newton meters of torque, which is a lot for a motorcycle. While the power figure isn't impressive, really the torque is. It's the most torquey bike out of them all. This lets the GS accelerate with a proper punch from almost any range, and it doesn't run out of emotions till the red line. This engine just works. However, it sounds like a farting ass, and that's probably its biggest downside, in my opinion. Other than this, it is smooth. It shakes a little bit to the sides when you're revving it, which is what BMW boxers have been doing forever now, but it gives you a really solid punch when you want it. You don't need to play with the gearbox too much if you're not racing anybody, and just calmly riding in the city or outside of the city as well. The gearbox used to be annoying on some of the previous GS bikes, and the riders would sometimes complain that it's not that precise or that it's loud. Now I do not see issues here in the 1250. It may make a click when engaging the first gear, but many motorcycles do. At least I know that the gear is engaged and I can go. And I can also know that from the large instrument panel with plenty of data right in front of my eyes. It's pretty understandable, the graphics are nice, and what's the best part of it is that there is so many data that you're not wishing for anything more. It is up to you if you prefer it digital or analog or mixed. But now it is what it is, and manufacturers simply cut costs, so the screen is actually the same as in smaller and cheaper BMW motorcycles too, and even the graphics are the same, which, well, for a legend like a GS is, could be a little bit of a disappointment. So this current Boxer engine is a masterpiece along all other engines from BMW's Boxer lineup, the previous ones. It's the most powerful, this one, and it reacts to throttle the quickest, and you can feel it comparing to the previous GS's. It's not a day and night difference, but it's a pleasant one. It is fine and no one should complain. It is not as much fun accelerating in a straight line as on a BMW S1000XR. No, it's not. And it's a bit less exciting than a Ducati Multistrada V4, but it's only if you accelerate with all that those engines have got. I sometimes like to do that, and you should ask yourselves if you do. If yes, then maybe S1000XR, Multistrada or a KTM will do better at the moment. But wait, let me tell you that I don't think so, actually. Still, it's the torque that makes overtaking at pretty much any speed totally comfortable, and the best part of it is that you don't need to reduce gears, or at least not many. And this is the big difference between the GS and other competitors, which will need that much more often. If you ride a lot, this can make a difference, so please keep it in mind. Riding at 80 to 90 kilometers per hour at 3000 RPM, you can accelerate in the 6th gear, and that's fine. While, for example, the Multistrada V4 becomes really unhappy and starts struggling and shaking at those speeds in a 6th gear. And also, this flexibility of the GS makes riding with luggage and the passenger easier, as there is pulling power very, very low, and it won't surprise you that it suddenly cannot accelerate in the 4th gear with a 100-kilogram girlfriend in the back. Well, maybe it will still, but if it does, it will surprise you much less than most of their competitors. Keep in mind that I'm talking about regular riding and not racing. When racing and keeping the revs high all the time, so playing with the gears a lot, a Multistrada or BMW S1000XR will smoke the GS. All of those bikes, including the GS, have a quick shifter, so you may change gears up and down without pulling the clutch. Just downshifting, you have to remember to close the throttle. So this is the point that riders love about BMW R1250g Is for. It's its torque, and it's the fact that it's available so low. Another one is my personal favorite, and something that I and many other riders don't think about immediately because there is no data for it. I am a guy that likes numbers. I like a lot of power, I like a lot of torque, small acceleration figures in seconds, and many points in the gadgets category. But this one thing that GS is so fantastic at is handling and the ease of it. It's just so enjoyable to deal with it from 1 kilometer per hour that the only way to find out how huge, I mean huge, of a difference there is comparing to anything else on the market is to ride it and then ride others, or rather ride others and then ride the GS. It's like a thing controlled just by a brain. You think, and the GS does it with zero effort. Now look, there are motorcycles that ride well and are neutral and fine in general, but this is a whole different level, and I mean it. Usually you just ride motorcycles, enjoy performance, you enjoy the wind, you enjoy the freedom and some excitement when taking curves or getting looks of nice brunettes on the streets. And here, once you get the GS moving, it's like you want to ride it everywhere, pass through the grass, make a U-turn for no reason, just because it's so easy and enjoyable because of that. You just want to accelerate and lean left just to brake and lean now to the right. It's just crazy, and I've been thinking long and hard about how to explain express and how to describe it because it's something totally different than any motorcycle gives you. It's perfectly neutral. It is immediately changing directions and it follows your orders. It doesn't do anything weird when you accelerate or brake, when leaning left or right, and it stays always on track. And guys, nobody paid me for saying this. I don't work for BMW and I've ridden over 40 motorcycles over the years, including almost everything I think in this category, and the GS is just unique in this particular area. If you think you like performance and a lot of horsepower like I do, first ride the GS to know the difference in handling. Now let me say that I could not have a GS myself. I just cannot stand the sound of a boxer engine myself, and it just literally annoys me to the point that I cannot deal with it. Yeah, you can get an aftermarket exhaust, but it's still kind of a similar tone. Today, I wouldn't want to give up on a sound of a proper V-twin myself. And hey, there's one more thing for those of you that are wondering how this compares to R1250 but RT, which is a strictly touring bike. The same engine and very similar suspension setup, yet the RT isn't even close to the fun and joy of riding the GS. Not at all. I've ridden the 2021 R1250 RT and it's totally outmatched. One of the reasons is that the sitting position is different and it influences how the bike can be controlled. The position is still upright, but the seat is lower. The bike feels much more top heavy, the handlebar is different, and it really is in the end something else, so it cannot be compared. The performance is almost the same though. I feel that this was a point important enough to mention, as I was actually wondering a lot after riding the RT about why it feels so differently, and this seems to be the reason. Suspension is also differently tuned and has different wheels travel. Now you sit on a GS, start the engine without the need of inserting the key anywhere, as the bike can have keyless ignition, so you can keep it in your pocket or wherever you want, even when you want to fuel up, as if the bike is unlocked. You don't need to use the key to open the fuel cap. This is where Ducati failed, for example. And now it's time for you to sit and grab the handlebar, which is wide and is perfect, for example for me at 183 centimeters tall, and it gives plenty of control and confidence without forcing you to spread your arms too much. Now there's one issue here for me when doing very tight turns and the other maneuvers that are very tight. I could turn the front wheel so much that I will have to really reach very far forward with one arm, and this would cause me to lean pretty significantly forward, which I don't like, and I used not to like this in previous GSs before as well. There are two things related to this. First is positive, and it proves it proves that the bike is so stable and so perfectly balanced that you can do whatever you want with it at the lowest speeds, which is awesome. At the same time, leaning that much forward makes you lose a lot of control, and if you ride over some bumps that shake your body kind of back or to the side, you fight to keep holding that handlebar. This keeps happening to me, so I believe it's good to know that it may be happening to you too. So either don't turn so tightly, or make sure you've got longer arms than I have. I don't think it should be a deal breaker, as it's caused by a positive nature of the bike, which enables you to perform some super tight figures, but yeah, it's there, or it can be there. It is very impressive to know that a big motorcycle that weighs 249 kilograms with a full tank can do those things so easily. It's really cool. Even the smaller GS isn't that enjoyable and doesn't handle that well despite being lighter. So scientifically looking at it, there are two things that I know directly contribute to it, and the rest is the magic of BMW tuning the suspension and frame. First thing is balancing and low center of gravity thanks to those big and kind of heavy cylinders, but sticking flat to the sides. Boxer engine here. Now it's not two upwards, like this, in an inline engine, and not also at some angle, not just one upward and one flat, like in some V-twins, and then they are called L-twins, but completely flat, like what? I don't know how to show. Damn it, no way. Like that, whatever. That's difficult, like that, whatever. So lots of weight is positioned low, thanks to it. And then being to the sides, I believe can act like walking on a hanging rope. Did you notice that some performers walk holding a long stick in their hands that sticks out to their sides, or spreading arms to their sides? You probably have used that technique yourselves if you had to walk on a hanging rope, which I have never a chance to try. I believe that the same may be happening here. The other thing that only BMW has is front telelever suspension that this GS has had for years now. And if you take a look, it's nothing like conventional front suspension in other motorcycles. It works normally, in fact, with an exception of preventing some movement of the suspension, which otherwise would result in diving when braking with the front brake, when the weight of the rider and the bike shifts forward. This guy here stays flat, and it's amazing. There is just one, I think, disadvantage of this solution, and it's when off-roading on very soft surfaces like sand. Because of the telelever suspension preventing diving, it kind of wants to make the front wheel ride and sort of go through some piles of sand. Regular front suspension would just allow the wheel more easily to ride over some obstacles rather than try to punch through them, because it wants to stay flat, so it doesn't want the front suspension to compress in a way that would make the whole front of the bike compress as well, to go down, in other words, to dive. If you are planning on riding on sand most of the time, then yeah, perhaps you should get something else. But otherwise, you don't need to care about anything that may be considered as a disadvantage, because that's the only one in fact. There's really no negative effect of it when riding on tarmac, over bumps, or conquering the city's curbs. None at all. So now you know why it does ride so well. But this is not the only thing that makes people sit on a GS, start off, and love it after 5 meters. There's also a paralever, single-sided swing arm suspension in the back with the drive shaft integrated into it. So there is no chain like in a Ducati or KTM, and that means no messy problems ever. No can with a lubricant carried on longer trips, no stopping every few 100 kilometers to spray the chain, and no need to check its tension in order to replace it on time. And there's also none additional cost of that. So there's none of that, in fact. And it doesn't break. At least I've never heard of any significant malfunction of it. However, there is one slight problem with the GS, and it's not mechanical, so don't worry. Because I mean mirrors. They are crap. Small and with the shape of a kind of a water drop or whatever that was supposed to be. They're nice and slim in terms of looks, but I couldn't see as much as I wanted in them. The optional mirrors seem to be not larger at all, while they do look even more cool. That's true. If it was up to me, I would replace them with a bigger, more square ones. In a 2021 GS, there is no rear radar with a blind spot monitoring system like in the Ducati Multistrada V4. So you are on your own, and keep that in mind. Ducati wins here. What I suggest, in fact, is you may steal some mirrors from an older Suzuki V-Strom if they actually fit. I haven't checked it, but that's perhaps a solution. Now the suspension, because as a whole, it deals very well with anything that's being thrown at it. Ease of riding is not everything, but everything else is here in the big GS2. So it's very stable at high speeds and lets you do a lot of stupid things. It lets you take corners way too fast, and actually faster than a sports bike riders, and you will be pissing your pants laughing at how you are overtaking other riders on twisty roads, just because the GS gives you so much confidence in pushing it and lets you control itself so precisely. Now, smaller and larger bumps are dealt with very comfortably, and it doesn't jump too much while riding over them. It's very comfortable, and with ESA electronic suspension, you can play with its stiffness depending on where you want to ride and how you want it to ride. Just don't expect some crazy differences in this area, and actually don't expect total character change when switching between the riding modes. They are there, but I myself don't see that much of a difference between the modes. Actually don't see any difference. But yeah, it ticks the box here too. So out of this, remember one thing: the GS does not act in an unpredictable way, and this is a fantastic description. Of course, as long as you can reach the handlebar, the ends of the handlebar doing a U-turn. Otherwise you drop it, and that happens to people also. But then again, a cool feature: if it falls down and ends up on the left, or rather to you on the left and the right side, it rests at some angle on its cylinders cover, which makes it much easier for you to lift it. Then again, crazy, they thought about everything there in BMW, seems like. Now always when I begin to play with the GS, I find myself kicking those cylinders when coming to a stop at the traffic lights. I do it always. Every time I'm jumping on a GS, I end up damaging my car. Actually no, because I have leg protection, but anyway, it takes me a while to remember that those sticking huge cylinders are there. In everyday riding and filtering traffic, it's fine, as cars don't have parts that stick out there further than their mirrors, but you know, it is what it is. As for off-roading, it should not bother you much, while the same rules apply obviously here. Now a true problem alert at this point: I don't think that the windshield is good enough. Not as good as BMW could have done it. It doesn't cause weird turbulences, but I believe it's not tall enough to provide super comfortable riding experience. At least it does not to me. I suggest you replace it with a taller one if you want a really good and solid protection. That's what I would definitely do here in a big GS. This windshield here is, yes, it is adjustable with a knob, so you can raise or lower it while riding, but I'm not a fan of the solution simply because I never remember which way I should turn it to move the shield the way I want it, up or down. It's easier in a Multistrada where you just press and adjust it with a handle of a kind of handle of a thing or whatever it is. Actually, they seem to have an issue with that at BMW, as even an RT doesn't protect the helmet of a rider of my height from the wind in the tallest windshield setting. Now, what about the German quality? First of all, this means nothing, but the quality is flawless here in the GS. I would say that for years now, BMW makes the best built bikes out of all motorcycles manufacturers. They are solid, they feel sturdy and well attached. The materials look nicely and feel rock solid. And these are my impressions that I get every time dealing with BMW motorcycles. It's a big part of owning a motorcycle, in my opinion. Just take a look at the ignition button and how it is crafted. Feel how it works, and then go to Ducati Multistrada V4 and look at that piece of condom stretched right in front of you that they have hidden a button under. So far, nobody is doing it as well as BMW, and this applies to this GS too. Just look at the handlebar, how it is painted. It makes you freaking want to touch it, to smear it, There aren't any weird sounds when riding over bumps, and that's another thing that's pretty cool. Nothing seems to be too loose, and all the items like switches, knobs, fairings, the handlebar and levers, they all work smoothly and don't require too much force here in the GS. The left grip unit, the whole set in this 1250 that the grip is the part of, it had some 1 millimeter of twisting movement and perhaps would need to be screwed more tightly, because I noticed that it was moving in this particular motorcycle. But it may not be a case in every 1250 GS. Now, the upright position makes using the front brake and the clutch lever easy, and there's no pressure on your wrists. It makes controlling the bike super easy. This is no different from other motorcycles in the category, but what is different is now brakes. This, I don't exactly know how BMW does, but brakes in their boxer powered motorcycles are amazing. Why on earth, for example, the S1000XR would not have such great brakes? Probably actually it has, as they don't lack power or feel, but they kind of don't give that much control. And listen, because this is important, it's quite cool. This is mainly because of the GS's front telelever suspension. That's why I mentioned the boxer powered motorcycles. So it includes an RT, which also has a telelever suspension. It's not that you squeeze the lever, the front brake engages, the front suspension gets compressed, the angles of the suspension change, and then the bike starts to actually slow down with you on it. Now, here you squeeze the lever and the bike brakes staying completely flat. It's a cool feeling and inspires really a ton of confidence. Now, thinking about it, I would really have a hard time choosing a bike for myself, as all this is amazing and unique to the GS. And I wish so much that it had a V-twin sound. Damn, that would be awesome. There's a lot of stopping power and you can feel exactly what is going on. There's ABS that's working also in the corners, so when you are leaning in turns and braking. KTM was the first one with this feature and BMW followed, so good job. There's also a brilliant and now almost invisible traction control. These two features make the GS a very safe motorcycle just on their own. Front and rear LED lights make it properly visible, while what I always recommend is to use the full beam instead of daytime running lights that don't shine generally, so that the other drivers may miss the bike in the rearview mirrors more easily. Now, using the whole lamp has a great effect on safety in any bike. Just power up all you've got because it's important that others see you. And BMW helps here with a new pack that lets LED indicators stay on in the front and in the rear, while in the rear they stay red as tail lights, and also shine more when you press the brake, as they've got a stop light included. The front lamp can be adaptive and light up in the directions of corners when you are leaning left and right, so that you see better where you are going after dark. Getting back to the position on the bike, you are sitting rather high here at 85 or 87 centimeters. The seat height is adjustable, so you may choose what you prefer, which version you prefer. Sitting high lets you also see better and further, like in an SUV car. I myself like that, and I like to enjoy the view, and you can do it for a long time because the Boxer engine is rather fuel efficient and the fuel tank is 20 liters. If you think it's not too much, then an adventure version of the GS gives you the crazy 30-liter fuel tank. Now, the seat is fine. I wish it was a tiny bit softer for a little bit more comfort, but I wouldn't complain much because it can be easily replaced with a custom one or a modified anytime. The first layer, around 1/2 centimeter, is super soft, and after that it gets significantly harder. It is not very narrow, but I would also make it slightly maybe wider. This is also because I can, because my height is okay for the bike. So making it wider wouldn't prevent me from nicely touching the ground, but this is very personal. What is not is that both seats can be heated now from 2021, and that's great, and nobody is left with a cold, wet butt. So just wet, but not cold for the passenger as of 2021. Speaking of cool things, there is also a gadget called Hill Start Control, which is activated with a rear brake and holds it for you for a few seconds, even if you release it, to prevent the bike from rolling. But the concept is fine and comes straight from cars. And just look at this bike and all the details. It looks really cool to me. What's worth knowing is that you may also get regular rims for a GS, or those cross-spoked ones like this 40 years anniversary. I think it makes a lot of sense to get those unique versions if you can, especially before R1300 comes. Surprised? If you're watching this still before the new one comes, then I'm expecting the new one to get some serious design changes. It hasn't really been changed for the last 8 years from 2013. It looks fine, but I do think that a replacement is coming, and it would do a lot of good to the model. I actually am going to make a video. I'm actually going to release it quite soon for you guys to see what we already know of the upcoming bike, whether it's going to be known as R1300 GS or something else, and what it should have, what it could have, and what we would like, or what I would like it to have, also based on what you are telling me. So that's my view on BMW R1250g Is, and I could summarize it by saying that this fairly powerful GS gives you freedom and encouragement to ride like crazy and to enjoy the process of cooperating with the bike. It's kind of like riding a bicycle versus a wheelbarrow full of stones. It just makes you want to ride more quickly and wherever you want, including off the road. It's easy to squeeze into tight spots, it's easy to slow down and stop, it's safe, thanks to all the control and electronics that are really brilliant. To make it more clear, a wheelbarrow in this example requires you to hold it very carefully and focus on it a lot. And if you want to turn, you have to expect the unexpected, as the stones in it shift and it may all fall on the side. It doesn't make you want to go particularly fast too, as if anything goes wrong, you're in trouble. This is all the opposite of BMW R1250g Is, and I'm totally serious with this example. It is just so good in the way it handles, and BMW have been working on this GS lineup for over 40 years now, and it shows. And so I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 on Vitol's recommendation board. I'm also comparing it in other videos directly with the newest Ducati Multistrada V4 in this case, as that's what I wrote, and BMW S1000XR, and even F850 and the RT if you are interested. So go ahead and watch these videos if they may help you, and if they are already out. If not, then they will be in the following weeks or months. So let me know in the comments how you feel about the R1250g Is, and especially about its handling and also about its image. Do these things matter to you guys? Just let me know. I hope that you enjoyed this one, and if you own or are waiting for the delivery of your R1250g Is, I hope that watching this just made you even more happy and more excited. See you in the upcoming videos. Bye!